Amitabha Buddha, welcome, everyone. People woke up this morning. The first idea is, do people remember the Buddha? People remember the Buddha, but do people have the heart to pray for the dead? Sir, is that before the learning sharing session? The great Buddha recitation of few verses to unite with the whole Mass? Non tissue ad do Buddha. Non tissue ad do Buddha. Non tissue ad do Buddha. I ask Amitabha Buddha to send me to the West. Non tissue ad do Buddha. Non tissue ad do Buddha. Non tissue ad do Buddha. The masses are today receive great, continue to quote in Sleepwalking of Master Ham SN. Glasses to the masses. Let's listen together. To listen to one of your opening statements. Buddha's mind must be earnest for the first birth and death, except for the exception. Then inside must be alone to initiate the single thought. Use a sentence Amitabha Buddha as a memorial. Memories are not forgotten. The mind is not interrupted. 24 hours of sitting while eating and dressing. Bending back and forth. Being busy all the time without being bored. Not stupid. There is absolutely no other grace. Use your mind for a long time. Not even in a dream. Waking up the same way means sleeping. When the secret becomes a block, that is effective force. It's a phase of the Master. Ham SN advised practitioners to recite our Buddha. The first stage, he said, the mind of Buddha. As the great ones often remind you, the importance of reciting the Buddha is that we have to decide. This life is born in the Western world ecstasy. Here's a key one. This is the wish of all the Buddhas. Why do you like Kamanu Ni? Because of us. Through with this pure method of reciting the Buddha. Because you really want it. That all beings escape from the sea of suffering and death. That's your mind. That's your hope. Because you know that we really are not capable enough, not enough power. There needs to be support. Rely on the guiding vow of Amitabha Buddha. One of the factors. What is it that is so deep about our prayer? We must believe that, as Master Kwang said, I am a mortal. But ordinary people are not ordinary people anymore, but a mortal who pees close to the ground. You have to use the word peeing on the ground. It means not with people. Born in this world, in the world. This woman is also a woman. But only myself. Always have to think that I'm a mortal. More than ordinary. Ordinary among the lower ordinary. When we think about it, then we know that it's now. If you don't rely on this Buddha sign, I don't rely on God's will, your acceptance of salvation, there's no AI that can help, that can save us. So, here you say mindfulness. Buddha must be passionate about birth and death, because of what it is about birth and death is to look forward. Determination of this life. This body is my last body. This spirit, this body with closed eyes and hands, is that this spirit was received by the Maitreya Buddha. If we want to do that, Buddha, the Buddha is willing to guide us. We want to go back to the Buddha. Buddha's mind and his mind intersect. Co-induction with each other, then surely we will be born. This is something to definitely remember, whether or not it is entirely in faith.
hoàn toàn là ở tín nguyện.
And it depends on what each person has.
Thuộc ở chỗ mỗi người có phước
Different
duyên
blessings have
cao,
different identities.
cao,
It's based on whether it's high or low.
chỗ là phẩm vị cao hay thấp.
But let's not put too much weight on it. Is it high or low? Like Master Tin, as much as you consider the master of the Pure Land, you also said, no,
Không tôi
I just hope that it is good to be born with dignity,
phẩm hạ sanh là tốt rồi.
because once I was born there,
Không cần như đà
I was close. There's nothing to be busy with,
phải bận biểu
to worry, to think again.
nghĩ.
To see a need do oi God vow.
Oai thần bổ nguyện.
Your merit is due to your merit.
Phước báo
Your light, it's all over me. No matter where you are in that environment,
chỗ nào đi chăng nữa
they are all surrounded by blessings.
của công đức phước báo.
The enveloping of the light of Dida. Once you are born, you will not. Let's not put too much emphasis on dignity. To be born, then it's already too good.
Tốt rồi.
It was too good. Here you repeat. Buddha's mind must be really about birth and death. This is essential. Here's the key. That the master like C.A. Manu Ni wants. Pass us on, so that we can understand this problem. The 6 religions of reincarnation are scary, with a capacity of his own. But to deal with the life of 5 evil schools like this, extreme, is very difficult. Now that's why. It's an unthinkable thing to do.
Thể nghĩ
Count table. It is a method that the 3 most popular and holy key collect, whether it's all intellectual or stupid,
hay là ngu si,
rich or poor,
nghèo,
ugly or beautiful. All classes just need to build trust,
xây dựng được niềm tin.
willing to practice according to his teachings.
Pháp của Ngài
Practice what you teach.
chỉ dạy.
Surely this life is in harmony with God's will. Certainly born. Every day we hear these stories. Must try, must try. Let us be so lucky when this world meets the Dharma. This Buddha recitation is very lucky you. Continue here. He said, Buddha's mind must be earnest for the first birth and death,
Đầu tiên
except for the exception.
đại duyên.
Outside is the exception. Here exotic Asian intersection, except it's not that you're letting go of everything, that we take things for granted. Once we have weighed the matter of birth and death, once we know that the thing that happens,
Sanh đó,
it is a victory, for it solves the problem of our suffering.
đau chúng ta
We have suffered in many lives
đời nhiều kiếp
that we haven't been able to solve since.
mà chưa thể giải quyết được.
There is no qualified opportunity for employees to solve. Now employ opportunity conditions. We are ripe. The Buddha said in the sutra that the human body has. We have it.
Rồi,
The Dharma is hard to find. We've met a hard to believe, hard to hear Pure Land, difficult to practice. Why South says difficult to practice? I didn't believe it and did it.
sao mà thực hành được?
Now we believe. Hear the news and sincerely invoke the recitation of the Buddha's wish for his birth. So, the things that are difficult, Buddha said we already have enough. What is this called? The time is ripe for us.
Mùi cho chúng ta.
The time is ripe for us. So, he said first outside, excluding charity. What does external conditioning mean? It means we don't let go of everything. We are like the speakers. I have put a lot of weight on the matter of birth and death. The root. Is that the key is the goal, the direction. On the outside, we take everything for granted.
Nhẹ mọi thứ,
Parents and children are responsible for them.
đúng trách nhiệm lo cho họ.
It is your responsibility to take care of your family. That worry always has a quality. What's that?
Đó là gì vậy?
I am a happy person.
Cực lạc,
I am the future of happiness.
cực lạc,
People want to be happy.
cực lạc.
What is indispensable?
Thầy thiếu
It is to know how to recite the Buddha, to grow your own life.
huệ mạng chính bản thân mình.
Must often recite the Buddha, grow your own life.
Mạng chính bản. Đúng không?
We keep reminding ourselves what it's called, know how to skillfully remove the exception. And not. We've got to hide in the woods,
Không gần
hiding in the mountains, hiding in AM in 7, no AI. That's
contact
not it. AI. At our house, here the trade is the trade of love. Trade the most accepted, the only one.
duy nhất
Take the Buddha as the source,
cái cội nguồn
to be the root that we cling to,
bám víu
and everything we take lightly. As we play in the middle of the river,
dòng sông
in the sea of life and death, There's a tree here that's floating.
Cũng trôi nổi.
There's a little sponge floating around, and a floating palm. The real big float also floats. In those things, we see that only this buoy, if we cling to it, it will be stable and qualify for the opportunity to get out of the chine, river out of this sea. This tree is too small. This sponge barrel, it's too small. That too. You're not as attached to anything as you are to something. This Buddha sign. On the outside, you can see the hips, this tree, this sponge, and this bucket. It's floating on the water. What are the parents and children here? Amitabha Buddha, let me return to this ecstasy. Let's see what helps us escape death. What can help us get out of suffering? That's what Amitabha Buddha is. That's our aspiration. We're attached. You see everything here, but really, these things can't get us out of the baby. River this sea. There is only the title of Buddha. It's easy to understand here. The afterlife is not about letting go of everything. But let's take things lightly and put them on a heavy weight in the heart. He said, then inside must be alone from the single thought. What is the name of Amitabha Buddha? It's all alone. It's all alone, I remember. No one can help me. No one practices. Help me, no one can help me and my suffering. No one can taste it for themselves. Who eats all the eggs? If someone drinks, he is thirsty. Whoever eats that person is less hungry. No one can quench their thirst. That's why you said. Then inside must be alone to initiate the task. Practice is to practice on your own. No one can help you. Being alone is right. We're going out alone. We suffer alone and we suffer. We suffer in the lonely sickness that we suffer. To be alone, even if there are people close to you, worry about protecting yourself. But no, it's just outside. It's just the sidelines. It really doesn't help. The pain, no one can breathe for me. By that, through this passage we see clearly that he said, except for the exception, inside must alone initiate the title Buddha. Go alone. Come alone. So, in our practice we are also alone. No one can help us. On the outside, it could be verbal support to motivate us, but if we don't practice by ourselves, we don't try. Who helps us? No one can help us. You're hot here or there. I'll help you use this Amitabha Buddha sentence. Make your own life. My whole life took this body. Take this health. Take this mind. Entrust it to Amitabha Buddha. Day of the Buddha. Day of prayer preaching book. It's called time lapse. Free time is to remember the Buddha. Free to pick up the phone. Free milk tea, free casino, free coffee. Free buy dog, free kick cock. Go fishing, have a picnic, and so on. Instead of seeing that time, you said you ate it? We take that time. We run after the joys of the world. Is that so? We know the triumph of the name Buddha. Know that the birth. It's very important to us in this life. Life, if we do not know how to save it, we don't know when to hold on. City 4. It's about liberating our own birth and death. Tomorrow, we will meet the Buddha to meet the deed of our. It's called we have to see for ourselves. There's no more time for us. This is a chance as a last chance. It's ours. If we can't catch the AI, we can't blame it. I heard it, understood it, but didn't do it. It's because of us. Because we can't blame anyone. So, let's use this Amitabha Buddha sentence. Make your own life. Let's take this Buddha sign. Free time entertainment silver. Buddha title. Remembering for a few months. Mindfulness does not forget, the mind does not interrupt. You said in 24 hours. Sit while eating, while drinking. Bow your horse back and forth, busy in every scene. Not stupid, not stupid. I am not crazy. Why do not you? This Amitabha Buddha title. What is it that your intuition has become? Once we recite the title, is that we grow the nucleus? Enlightenment is liberating in our minds. The senses are not mesmerized. The senses are not mesmerized. Day of Remembrance Hour. We are free to remember the Buddha. Recollection of Buddha. That's the day we're planting dreams. Watering the enlightened Bodhi in our minds. So, how can we be enchanted? He said in 24 hours. For our ordinary people in the French era, it can't be done, but it's very difficult. It's very difficult for us as mortals. I just want to be as good as I can be. Where to get it? Now sometimes people don't remember the Buddha. But when you have free time, you can talk. Are you done? It's done, and recite the Buddha. If you are free, you can have 50 minutes. If we do that, we can do that. There are many people who are throughout the world. Sometimes it's like cooking. There is always one. There is always one. Everything with enthusiasm. It's about being totally dedicated to that. Is to do my best to do my duty. But when you let go of work, are the great swords of the great sitting reciting swords. Buddha. What corner? What bench? The great sitting reciting Buddha. You guys have fun talking. It's your normal thing. And as great, I know, I understand this Buddha sign must be worn every day, every minute, every second. A Buddha's motto that arises is, cultivate goodness and increase virtue. Give us a question. Buddha's thought to arise is the cultivation of seeds into the future for us. We see the appreciation in this Buddha title in 24 hours. You say, even though you're busy. But take a moment to recite the Buddha. The important thing is to be honest. I believe that I recite the Buddha. Lord, I want to go to the West. Lord, I want to go to the West. It is surely in your will. You will help me. You will save me. He never abandons us. No matter what class you are, how many sins do you commit, but you turn around and make amends. The Buddha never abandons us. Remember this. Don't say that our karma is heavy. Don't say that our karma is deep. Heavy karma, thick, deep karma. But what can your will be? It's our karma. The important thing is whether we are truly practicing or not. If you use a fake heart, it will be fake. This place is very clear. Say here. Absolutely nothing else. Use your mind for a long time. Not even in a dream. Once upon a time a resident. Ask Master Kwon that. Master, I heard that you recite the Buddha in your dreams. So you taught me how to recite the Buddha in my dreams. What does Master Kwon say? In everyday life while he was awake, try to recite the Buddha. You try to be diligent. Then naturally in your dreams you will recite the Buddha. What do you mean? Don't talk about the problem that I can recite the Buddha at night. Or in my dream I can recite the Buddha. Ask in everyday life. Ask in everyday life. We accumulate time, we gather time. If you try to recite the Buddha, it naturally becomes a habit. It causes the husband to fall asleep one day. The feeling is that I also vomit in place of the Buddha title. It's not a method. In some way, you speak clearly here. Long day use mind, long day master. To the ground, until in a dream the Buddha does not forget it. Long day city. I'm used to it, you know, in my dreams. Touch a mind. It is called the nightmares of the past. It shows up, but at that time I still remembered the Buddha. This is getting the feeling back in person. And you're working hard. Normally keep my retreat time and free. Remember the Buddha. You should focus on reciting the Buddha in the morning. Then in the evening you naturally want to recite the Buddha. What are you talking about? It's like one thing, one thing, one thing. Going down is always straight. It's not called favorable. There's no so-called blocking AI, because everyday life we remember the Buddha. At night is also to remember the Buddha. It doesn't have a particularly strange method. Use your mind like that. You will get used to it in a long time. But I've said a lot of these. What is it that is familiar with no good AI or bad AI? That person is close to being a good person. Being almost bad becomes a bad person. What is familiar? Become familiar. Now we practice the recitation of the Buddha. We have long been. I get used to it and naturally I have a lot of memories. That's a master. It's not complicated here, you say. To become a master is to be skillful. What is the most effective method? The most effective way is to touch the police officer. In any situation, you still remember the Buddha. Recollection of the Buddha. Buddha and the spirit of blood born. This life is always in our hearts. There's no power you can't hear. You can't make a vow. Why am I outside? It's what it's like to be outside of your mind. How in my mind? You can't do anything in my mind. I laughed in my mind. You forbid me to recite the Buddha outside. To be born. You know what? I don't know. You forbid me to recite the Buddha outside. I am reciting the Buddha in my mind. I don't know. I recite the Buddha. I want to be inspired. Who gets in my way? No one gets in my way. Just because I was late. Justify yourself, just to justify my laziness. If you want to recite the Buddha, you want to practice. In every difficult officer challenging the obstacle, busy or busy. Or do you say move or busy or padded? If we're really about birth and death, really cherish this Buddha sign, then this person will know how to be skillful. To recite the Buddha in that situation. Modern self sometimes a lot of cooking, for example. The mass festival of people suppose. Through it all. But in that way? If you really want to practice and cherish the Buddha, understand, we crawl. Free is to remember the Buddha, free is to remember the Buddha. It's called the continuous recitation of the Buddha. When the charm hits the scene, forget what you forget. That's not what I want, but suddenly bumped into an A. Remember the Buddha and recite. I forgot about the Buddha and what long time forgotten. Remember, forget, remember, forget. Practice gradually and that gradually. Always put heavy. The point is to remember the Buddha. You have to remember the Buddha. For a long time it calls to plant the seed of our mind. The Buddha is above all else. Mindfulness is the ultimate goal. Our lives are not beyond the goal of reciting the Buddha. Thoughts of goals in other directions. It's far from us. Let's take the goal of reciting the Buddha as the main route for us. Then we gradually train the mind. Train his mind. It's been a long time since he got used to it. You know, sometimes the monument chair just wants to recite the Buddha. Or put the on your back in bed. Remember the Buddha. When you get sleepy, you get used to it. Now you're not lying down. It doesn't have to be sitting around. Put your hand on your forehead and remember this dream. It's not familiar. Now the Buddha sign is light. It's what's in our blood. It's already in our minds. It can be called. It's part of our minds. Part where this part is the important part. Feed the life. The power of your own life. I heard this part today. Then you try hard to recite the Buddha. Whether they are born or not completely. Whether we are willing to recite the Buddha or not. This place is important. Receive today. I will read the story of the great detective. Buddha's mind must be earnest for birth and death. First, accept for the exception. Then inside alone to initiate one thought. Use a sentence Amitabha Buddha as the root. Memories are not forgotten. The mind is not interrupted. 24 hours of sitting while eating and drinking. Stooping back and forth, busy, dynamic. In a time without ignorance, without stupidity. There is absolutely no grace. Other people use the mind like that for a long time. Not even in a dream. waking up the same.
như nhau.
It means that the intricacies become a mass.
Một khối
That is effective preparation.
lực
That's the stage. Get to college with you today.
với quý vị.
Let the people try their best.
Nỗ lực.
Devotees recite the Buddha's resolve. This life is born in the Western world ecstasy.
Tây phương cực lạc.
Non tissue di do Buddha.